Imagine walking through a frozen forest where every step crunches like a warning. Where shadows move on their own, and the air itself seems alive with secrets. Tonight, you will meet the rabbit and the fox, two friends trapped in a frostbitten nightmare. Something is watching, something cold, something impossible. Will they survive the night, or will the forest claim them forever? Stay with me, because every moment in the frosty forest hides a chilling surprise you will not see coming. Frosty Forest Friends. The forest lay blanketed in frost, each tree glittering like crystal. A biting wind whispered through the branches, making the leaves shiver. The ground crunched beneath every careful step. A small rabbit hopped nervously, its nose twitching at the cold air. Icicles hung from the branches, dripping slowly into the snow. The fox padded silently behind the rabbit, ears alert to every sound. A distant howl pierced the silence, sharp and sudden. The rabbit froze, its breath puffing in white clouds. Shadows moved strangely among the trees, bending unnaturally. The fox's fur bristled as a chill ran down its spine. A frozen pond reflected the pale moon, but something beneath the surface shifted. The rabbit twitched again, eyes wide and unblinking. A low growl echoed from the woods, vibrating through the frost-bitten air. Branches snapped under an unseen weight, snapping closer with each heartbeat. The fox stepped back, ears straining for the source. A shadow emerged, taller than any animal they knew, its eyes glinting icy blue. The forest seemed to hold its breath. The rabbit and fox huddled together, hearts racing as the presence drew nearer. Then, a sudden crack. Frosty Forest Friends continued. Then, a sudden crack echoed through the frozen forest, sharp as splintering glass. The rabbit let out a tiny squeak, ears flattening against its head. The fox crouched low, tail stiff, every muscle coiled for flight. The icy wind seemed to intensify, rushing past them like a living thing, carrying whispers that made the fur on their necks bristle. A shadow shifted again, taller, darker, and impossibly still despite the wind. The snow beneath it did not crunch as it moved, only bending under an unseen weight. The moonlight flickered through the frost-covered branches, creating phantom shapes that danced across the forest floor. The fox's amber eyes narrowed, scanning for movement, while the rabbit's teeth chattered uncontrollably. The air smelled sharp and metallic, like frozen iron, and a tingling sensation crawled over their skin. Every sound, the crack of a branch, the drip of melting icicles, was magnified in the eerie silence. The shadow drew closer, its edges dissolving into the mist, yet its presence pressed heavily on the animals, almost physical in its weight. A cold, guttural rumble emanated from the depths of the forest, vibrating through the snow and into their paws. The fox let out a low growl, warning the intruder, but the sound seemed swallowed by the icy air. The rabbit whimpered and pressed itself against the fox's side, shivering from more than just the cold. Something unseen slithered across the snow near the frozen pond, leaving trails that glimmered with frost and then vanished. A gust of wind slammed into them, carrying a scent of decay, old and sharp, like something trapped beneath ice for centuries. The shadow stopped at the edge of the clearing, silent except for the faint hiss of ice forming and breaking around it. The moonlight glinted in what looked like eyes, too many eyes, glinting coldly, reflecting back terror. The rabbit squeaked again, louder this time, as the hairs on its back stiffened like needles. The fox's ears twitched, it tried to sense any weakness, any sign that the shadow was tangible. But it felt impossibly vast and weightless all at once. A sudden crack split the air, louder than any branch, as if the forest itself was breaking. From the shadow, a figure slowly emerged, its shape vaguely humanoid, yet elongated and distorted, draped in frost and icicles. Its limbs bent at impossible angles, each movement silent, fluid, like water frozen mid-fall. The fox froze, every instinct screaming to run, yet its paws felt rooted to the snow. The rabbit trembled violently, pressed against the fox as if seeking protection it could not find. The frost-coated figure tilted its head, and in that moment, the moon revealed its face, empty eyes that shimmered like glass and a mouth that seemed to absorb light instead of reflecting it. A sharp, icy wind roared around them, cutting through fur and feathers, carrying a whisper that almost sounded like words, but too cold and distorted to understand. The fox's tail flicked, sending a spray of snow into the air, but the figure did not react. Then, slowly, it began to move again, each step silent yet impossibly heavy, pressing down on the frozen earth as if bending reality itself. The rabbit's breath came in ragged clouds, and the fox felt its heart pound like a drum in the stillness. Every instinct told them to flee, but there was no path clear, the snow and ice twisted in strange, unnatural patterns, closing off escape routes. Branches creaked and groaned above, weighed down by frost, threatening to fall at any moment. The figure reached the frozen pond, its reflection perfectly mirrored, yet distorted, its image moving slightly out of sync with reality. A sudden, blinding shimmer of frost erupted from the pond, sparkling shards flying like knives through the air. The fox leapt backward instinctively, dragging the rabbit behind it, and the shards cut the air with sharp, ringing cracks. The figure tilted its head again, as if amused, then raised a long, slender hand toward them. The wind howled louder, carrying the sound of cracking ice, snapping branches, and whispers that seemed to call their names. The rabbit froze, its eyes wide, pupils dilated, as a low hum began vibrating through the forest floor, deep and resonant, almost alive. The fox barked, a sharp, desperate sound, but it was muffled by the hum, absorbed by the cold. Suddenly, the ice beneath their paws began to crack, radiating outwards in spiderweb patterns. The rabbit screamed and bolted, only to slip on the ice, sprawling helplessly across the frozen surface. The fox lunged forward to save it, claws scraping the ice, snow spraying into the moonlight. The figure advanced, each step causing the frost to rise like smoke, chilling the air to the bone. Shivers ran down the fox's spine as it realized the shadow did not simply walk, it seemed to glide, untouched by the laws of weight or gravity. Icicles snapped and fell from the trees as if obeying some unseen command, showering the forest floor in sharp, crystalline rain. The rabbit scrambled desperately toward a cluster of frosted pines, eyes never leaving the figure. The fox circled protectively, keeping between rabbit and shadow, its body tense like a drawn bowstring. The shadow's head tilted unnaturally, and the icy wind shifted, carrying a smell of snow and smoke, of something ancient and hungry. A sudden crack resounded from beneath the frozen pond. The figure paused, then slowly, deliberately, reached toward the center of the ice. A fissure spread rapidly, cutting through the frozen surface, dark water visible below, swallowing the reflection of the moon. The fox barked again, urging the rabbit backward, but the ice groaned under the combined weight. The wind intensified, carrying a keening wail that seemed to rise from the earth itself, chilling their bones. Shards of ice shot upward, forming spiky barriers around them, encasing the forest in a glittering cage. The rabbit whimpered, and the fox pressed close, watching the shadow advance. Then the pond cracked entirely with a deafening explosion of ice, sending a wave of freezing mist toward them. In the mist, the shadow's form seemed to multiply, splitting into countless reflections, all moving with the same fluid, unnatural grace. The fox's heart pounded as every instinct screamed danger. The rabbit dug its paws into the snow, shaking uncontrollably, trying to make sense of the impossible figures surrounding them. The icy air was thick with tension, the forest holding its breath as the shadow closed in. Every second stretched into eternity, every sound amplified, the hum, the cracking ice, the whispering wind. The fox lunged instinctively toward the nearest tree, attempting to create distance, dragging the rabbit along. The shadows swirled around them, impossible geometry bending in ways that made the mind reel. Branches snapped and fell, punctuating the suffocating silence, each one a small explosion of frost and snow. The rabbit screamed again, high and piercing, as the figure's reflections moved closer, converging. The fox hissed, teeth bared, claws raking the ice, determined to defend the trembling rabbit. A blinding shimmer erupted from the shadows, cold searing into their eyes, freezing the world in a frozen, unreal moment. The blinding shimmer slowly faded, leaving the forest hushed and trembling. The shadows that had multiplied and danced in impossible patterns dissolved into the mist. The fox and rabbit stood frozen, hearts pounding, paws sinking slightly into the softening snow. The air was cold, but the bite of terror had passed, leaving only a trembling, electric stillness. From the center of the clearing, a faint light shimmered, a soft, pale glow that seemed alive, warm in the midst of frost. The frozen pond's surface returned to smooth, reflective ice, but now it glowed faintly, as though holding a quiet magic beneath. The shadow figure was gone, leaving only a whisper in the wind, like a memory of something that had never fully existed. The rabbit nuzzled the fox's side, shivering, yet slowly regaining courage. The forest, once so threatening, seemed to exhale, releasing the tension that had gripped every branch and twig. Icicles dripped gently, and the snow beneath their paws crunched softly, ordinary once again. A pale moonbeam touched the fox's fur, sparkling in a way that felt almost like a blessing. They moved cautiously toward the edge of the clearing, the glow of the pond guiding their steps. Every step forward was lighter, less fearful, as if the forest itself acknowledged their survival. The rabbit stopped and looked back, sniffing the cold air, but the shadows did not return. The fox, ears flicking, gave a soft, comforting nuzzle to its companion. Together, they turned from the pond and the empty clearing, moving through the frosty trees with careful, steady steps. The wind carried only soft whispers now, like the rustle of old friends bidding them farewell. The forest had been frightening, mysterious, and full of wonders they could not explain. Yet somehow, in the heart of fear, they had found courage, loyalty, and a bond stronger than the frost itself. The rabbit hopped beside the fox, no longer trembling, and the fox's tail swished in quiet relief. The frost glimmered around them, sparkling like tiny stars, lighting their path home. As they disappeared into the deeper woods, the clearing remained still and serene. A frozen memory of a night when fear became adventure. And friends discovered that even the coldest, darkest forest could hold warmth in the courage shared between them. The wind sighed gently, and the moon hung high, a silent witness to the frost and friendship that would linger long after the night had ended.